Well, welcome to the Questions Podcast, episode 137. I'm Pastor Miles. Oh, wait, hold. I have to actually give you can't be muted.
I'm muted. I was mutated.
I got too many things to do here.
You know what? There's a reason why people have a crew.
We don't have a crew. We do this just
Got us.
on a whim.
There you go.
We try to do this without a crew, and we'll see how it goes without a crew. In
Well-
fact, the way this is supposed to work, it's supposed to automatically cut. Like if you start talking,
Okay, I'm talking now.
it jumped to you kind of slowly. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
What happens if I do a fake freeze frame mute and go?
Well, then it's going to cut back to me, just like it just cut back to me. You can see
There
right
you go.
here. There, it cut to you. It cut to me. This is, wow. This is like tennis.
Faces for radio.
Man, oh man. Well, now we have video, so
Yeah, I know.
what are we going to do?
Yeah. Makeup.
It's very frightening, this whole thing.
I think I'm going to save up for my facelift, you know?
You're going to get one of those?
Yeah, I doubt
Probably
it.
not
I doubt
anytime
it.
soon.
Yeah, maybe I can get a really good deal on one in Mexico or something.
I wouldn't.
No, that's I have you ever seen the horror shots of the stars or celebs?
It is so frightening. No,
And-
like the one that really strikes me as, I don't know what you were thinking, was what's the gal that was in Sleepless in Seattle with Tom Hanks?
That makes me sad. Is Meg Ryan?
Meg Ryan, that's right. Like
She was
it is
the
a little sad.
cutest little thing, and she was aging so gracefully, and now
Yeah, it doesn't quite look right. It's very frightening. I
Yes.
feel bad for her.
so in Portuguese, the word for somebody who's got really huge lips, or it's the first thing you note about, they'll say besolage, which is big lips or whatever.
Big lips.
But it's not necessarily a kind
Unfortunately, it wasn't just the lips. I think she had way too many things done here and there. And then it's like you try to fix the things that you tried to fix in the first place, and you get yourself in a fix.
thing. I think keep your GM car all GM. I think for the most part. I mean,
Yeah.
I appreciate the brushing of the teeth.
I
and,
think
you know,
the words you said
Yeah.
were right. Aging gracefully.
age gracefully.
That's the aim.
Yeah. Now, and some people just, they always look great no matter how old they are. I don't know how they pull that off.
I was at a short little conference, pastor's conference.
Mm-hmm.
I only went up for one day on Monday, and Alistair Begg came and spoke at it.
Oh.
And afterwards, there was like a short, maybe 30 or 40 minute Q&A that the guy hosting the conference and Alistair had. But so Alistair, I want to say he's probably late 60s, maybe he's early 70s. I don't really know. I mean, we could probably look it up online. But he has like almost zero gray hair.
Wow.
There's no gray hair going on. And so the guy interviewing him, Brian Broderson, is completely gray. And he asked him, so tell me about the hair. And Alistair laughed. He said that I don't do anything to the hair and people don't believe me. And he said, if I looked more like you, Brian's completely gray. He said, maybe I'd get some more respect. I thought, well, that's interesting. Yeah.
See, my question and answer, I'd be Alistair, tell me the one about the lab.
About the laboratory.
Yeah, the pastoral. Alistair's, what we're talking about here is Alistair had a pastoral teaching series that was beneficial.
It was really good.
very beneficial.
Yeah.
I really recommend it. But even if you're just going to lead a small group or something, I think there's some really handy, hints in there. But he goes into, the storyteller and the pastor who wants to tell us the one about the Labrador. And it's all good, but then right after that,
So do you remember the other people that he talked about that don't fall into this trap, being the preacher?
the hobby horse.
The hobby horse preacher.
It's always about rock and roll.
Leviticus chapter 19.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes, he's talking about rock and roll and
Armageddon. Yeah.
Then the cheerleader.
Yeah.
I just remember him talking about the cheerleader.
Now, what's
who's
the
always got
cheerleader?
He's the one who's always got the peppy, happy talk to give you, like,
Oh,
rah, 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 you
okay.
can do it sort of thing. So the storyteller, the cheerleader, the hobby horse guy. Do we remember any other ones? I bet if we look this up too, because it's such a standard Alistair message that he gave for so long that it's kind of a thing.
It would be, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have some of our people that are learning to teach here,
The series
for them to
was
listen,
great.
but maybe to spend a little time with these guys, coaching them and saying, like, this is a real thing. And it
Yeah.
would be helpful. Because I know it was helpful to me when I first started teaching, like a few handy hints. Like
Right.
one of them was when you share an analogy, if it's a story you've experienced, try not to show yourself in a good light all the time so that you don't seem like a superhero. But then don't be so disparaging of yourself either. There's a balance there.
Why not?
I know. It's funny. Typically, like I would remember Pastor Way would tell stories about him trying to do something that was clearly out of his expertise. Like he told a story one time about assembling a barbecue. And so, and that was to explain why he had no eyebrows.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. So, but anyway, try not to always show yourself in this, like super Christian in these analogies. There was a few of them.
Yeah, you should not always be the best part of your story, like the hero of the story.
Exactly. And then that's better said than what I was saying. And then another one was, and I thought this was a good thing. And I was told, he goes, whatever you're teaching on, make sure that whatever you're teaching on, somewhere in your message, people know that Jesus loves them and that they are forgiven. And he goes, because that's the message of the cross.
Well, I will say that was one of the things that Alistair in his message the other day, he was talking about. He was saying that you need to give the gospel. Don't fail to give the gospel to people.
Right.
Which is key.
Well, this came up the other day because I was doing a wedding. I hadn't done a wedding in a public, more of a public wedding in a while. And when I'm sure you've experienced this, but you're doing a wedding and all of a sudden you start to engage in talking about Jesus. And the Christians in the crowd, you could see their eyes perk up and they kind of give you like a,
yes, we were waiting for
we're
this.
at a Christian wedding. Awesome. And then the people were like, oh, I didn't know they were going to bring Jesus up. They start to shrink a little bit, maybe, or get a little uncomfortable.
Were there a lot of guests there that were not really of the Christian persuasion?
I would say it was probably 60-40. There was a crowd in the back that were not involved in the wedding that were back enjoying some wine, maybe a little bit too much wine. They were not associated with the wedding. They were just
so it was like a John chapter 2 Cana wedding.
A little bit, yeah. But they had not run out of wine yet. And when I started talking about Jesus, they left, which, I was hoping they'd be there for the whole thing because they didn't get to find out about the part where he loves them and they're forgiven. But
yeah.
Anyway, good
that's
times.
Fun.
We had a good week.
Good things.
Right. Had a great ride last night with some guys. And
that's nice.
My neighbor got to come, which was really cool. I've been inviting people to this ride that aren't necessarily church people, so it's a lot of fun. And, the guys that we ride with are really great, and we invite everybody from the church, basically. But there is nothing, I think, for men quite so evangelistic as being around men that are God-centered and God-fearing and God-loving.
I was just having a conversation this morning with a gentleman who he was asking me some questions about how to grow in his faith, and I said, well, one of the best things you can do is probably identify some other godly guys somewhere near about your age, say plus or minus 5 years, and spend some time with them. Make sure they're the kind of people that maybe they're a little farther in their faith and you go, I want to be a little bit more like that person, and then spend some time with those people.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in that. I think, what they used to tell us, that you should always have a kind of a Timothy in your life, and you should always have a Paul in your life where you're learning.
The Paul, the Barnabas, and the Timothy, right?
Yeah, an encourager. I forgot the encourager.
Barnabas was the one who would bring people along. Oftentimes, he would go find people that, hey, this guy needs to come along with this one. I like the Barnabas thing. His name means son of encouragement.
Right.
So, a Barnabas, a Timothy, and a Paul is very important.
That's kind of my thing. I like bringing people along to introduce them to stuff.
Good peers,
doing that.
People you can spend time with who are close to where you are. Good leaders that you follow, and be a leader to other people.
Yeah.
That's certainly how I ended up in the ministry. I think it was similar to you.
Yes. And I think in that you're gleaning, you're receiving things, but you're also pouring out and giving, and then you're kind of living or marinating in the middle of that, enjoying that whole thing. So it's pretty cool.
Very good.
So anyway, we did a men's group on Tuesday night, and that's been very encouraging with some great guys.
Yeah, I've heard some really good feedback from people about the life groups this go around, and the sermon-based discussion life groups that we've been doing.
I tell you, if I had my way, I think we'd have that available to everybody all the time. I think it's a really great thing to go through with your wife or your kids, or some guys or some gals or couples, and just the unity that's built into it, because you're listening to the pastor speak on Sunday, and then you're breaking down,
right,
and maybe even explaining some things that were missed on Sunday, or sometimes there's problem areas, and you're like, oh, I really was convicted about this, or hey, I was really encouraged about this. So
Yeah, I've heard from more than a few people who ask that we continue to put the discussion questions up on the website every single week, which we're going to continue to do because we're already kind of in the routine and it's relatively simple to put those up. So I think that's good.
it's helpful.
I hope so.
The cost benefit. What do they call
The
it?
CBA,
Well, there's that, or the ROI. Yeah,
return on investment. Yeah,
Love
that's
it.
right.
Love it.
Yeah.
So
There are some benefits and some returns on those things.
And your family, who was gone, is now back.
They are back, although we are preparing for a little vacation.
Yes.
So looking forward to that. I think a week from today. So there may be some outages of the podcast here in the near future. I'm very sorry. I apologize.
It's okay.
So.
They can store up those questions because
Keep sending us your questions. We need more questions all the time. Although we have some good ones today. We'll get
with
to
our
those.
lineup of guest speakers, we will have plenty of questions,
There
I'm
you go.
sure.
Yes,
So
it should be good.
it's
I've been, speaking of which, I've been getting some good feedback on the Nicene Creed series that we are doing. So it seems like people really are really enjoying it. I think seeing the connection where it becomes very clear that our faith, the things we believe, are what Christians have believed for a very long time, going back to the Scripture, and then the Nicene Creed just takes right out of the Bible. Here's some basic things that we believe about God. So it's good. I think it's been good for me going through studying all the passages and, kind of like rethinking about some things having to do with higher level theology about God.
what I like about going through the creed is it reiterates an action, something God did, but then we have a response to that. And so talking about, he came down will be not this weekend, but the weekend after.
Yeah.
It's like there's a response to that. And reading through would be the second chapter of Philippians, I believe it is 1 through 11. There's a response to how we should treat one another and treat people because of that action. And so I really like the fact that we're looking at these things, and it's not just what God did. It's like, what is our reaction? Then what is our response to that? Sometimes it's just faith and belief, but sometimes there's action and things. And so I really like it has a little bit of this happened, and we have a little bit of a to-do list connected with that in a good way.
So last week we talked about one Lord, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, begotten of one substance with the Father. This week we're talking about through him all things were made. So that's going to be interesting. And then you were mentioning we're going to be talking about for us and for our salvation he came down. Good truths, and truths that I think we need to be sometimes reminded of, because it's easy for us to forget, what are the core things that we Christians believe? And this is just a simple summary. There's other ones as well, so other catechisms, if you will. And but you don't normally come across those in a lot of the more non-denominational Protestant churches. The flavor, as I mentioned on Sunday, the strawberry flavor that we are. Now we got some chunks of strawberry in there.
Yes, the blender. Yes,
yeah, there you go.
And the one word that trips everybody up:
Catholic
with a little c.
We believe in one holy Catholic and apostolic church. Catholic, it just means universal. It's not the big C, Catholic. Yeah. Although on our website, in our beliefs section, which actually will be a part of one of the questions we have today, we put the Apostles' Creed on there because we make reference to it, and we changed Catholic to Christian, holy Christian church, just so we didn't have any issues. But I'm sure now we'll have somebody who goes, well, you shouldn't have changed the creed. It's been, 1,800 years old.
Same.
We do our best around here.
You have to watch the nomenclature, because
sometimes
it freaks people out.
Through the uprights, or on the fairway.
Center of the fairway.
That's right. We shoot for the fairways and greens.
There you go.
Sometimes we end up in the rough, and occasionally in a bunker.
It's like my son tells me when I'm fighting a big fish, Dad, just don't do anything weird.
Yeah, don't do anything dumb.
Nothing weird.
Paul basically says don't do anything dumb or weird in 1 Corinthians 14, having to do with spiritual gifts as well. Don't make it so that people have reason to think you're completely lunatic.
Yeah. Do this kind of in order, decently in an order.
Fairways and greens, people. Fairways and greens.
There we
shoot
go.
For singles and doubles, fairways and greens, shoot for the uprights.
So looking at the questions today, do you think there'd be more spiritual minty freshness or more cold-blooded love?
I guess we're going to have to see, but, we want to make sure that we want to use the cold-blooded love sparingly. You don't want to be overboard. It's kind of like salt. You don't want to over-season things. Like Paul said, grace seasoned with salt. So I think that cold-blooded love is the salt and the grace situation.
So you mean
cold-blooded
maybe
love?
okay.
Yeah, you want to use it sparingly.
So you're saying like a disciplinary spanking as opposed to a beating.
Discipline,
Discipline.
not abuse.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Discipline's important.
There is a gauge on that though. Some kids they're harder to get through to.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's yeah.
I made it through it, but I was one of those that was exercised, like the author of the book of Hebrews talks about in Hebrews 12.
Did Jeannie DeBen have to cast that demon out, or was it wrong?
Let's just say that there were some wooden spoons involved, and there was more than one of them that was broken in the process.
Well, they don't make them like they used to.
No, this was a
old
long time ago.
Oh, so this
was not a cheap wooden
So
spoon.
this is old growth wooden spoon.
I would say so. It sure felt like that.
Okay, do you remember the restaurant, the Wooden Spoon?
Yeah, it was on Valley Parkway, like right across from TJ's Tacos, right?
Yeah.
For some reason, it went out of business. I can't understand why.
Yeah. I actually had eaten there twice.
Really?
And the food was fantastic.
Really?
But I remember driving by there going,
It like
"That's-
give you a little trigger.
Well, we got a stick. We didn't get a wooden spoon. But
Oh wow! Did you have to go choose your stick?
no. It was like a paddle type stick. They called it the stick. But I remember driving by there and go, I think that was a marketing,
maybe a different name,
a faux pas.
would have
Yes.
been wise.
Yes. The wooden spoon is not conjuring up a lot of warm memories for everybody. So,
Yeah, for people like Miles and Mark,
Yeah, there you go.
we were exercised by chastening, shall we say? But you see,
flinch.
both you and I, we had the same situation in that our dads had jobs that took them away.
Yes.
For long periods of time. So it was only the moms who were there to deal with the meted out punishment.
Yeah, my mom had 3 boys.
And your mom, she's like, what, 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing?
5 foot with the fro and the heels.
I mean, you were probably taller than your mom when you were like 7,
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much.
My mom was not a big person,
No.
but she had volume.
Speaking of taller than mom, my youngest, school is out and he's been sleeping. And you know what happens when a boy is about 12 and he just sleeps endlessly? I think he's grown like 4 inches in 3 weeks.
Okay,
It's crazy.
I'm going to be spending some time with your kids. You didn't know this, but
I actually do know this.
okay. So you heard about the
Because when I'm out of town, one of your family members is staying at my home with
Right.
my kids. So
Right.
you'll be spending some time with my children.
well. So the deal was I was going to show my grandkids. I was going to introduce them to the Three Stooges.
Oh, okay.
But Missy was afraid that there may be eye injuries because of their lack of restraint in 2 and 4 year olds. So I'm like, well, that's no fun. And then I was conversing with your youngest son the other day, and just for some reason, because I know he's doing martial arts,
Yeah.
I said, have you ever seen any cheesy 70s martial arts movies? He goes, there's a thing? And I'm like, oh, bro. So I think we're going to have to go over to your house and have cheesy martial art movie night. I've been reviewing some of them.
You know, everybody was kung fu fighting.
Everybody was.
Those cats were fast as lightning.
It was a little bit frightening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but they had expert timing. So we didn't have to worry. But anyway, I've been reviewing a few of the old favorites, and they were so incredibly cheesy. The Master of the Flying Guillotine.
No. This is a show. This is a movie?
This is one, and there's the villain is the one-armed boxer.
Have you seen the old martial arts movie, the Bruce Lee movie, where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar
Yes.
Jabbar is in the movie?
Yes.
And he's like the last, he's like the chief boss that has to fight. And to be quite honest with you, Kareem could kick.
Okay,
That guy had some serious game when it came to martial arts.
we saw one the other day.
Yeah.
We were reviewing because I want to make sure that there's nothing
Too terrible.
harmful.
They're kind of like 70s.
I'm not here to harm your children. And it was Chuck Norris was fighting
I love Chuck
Bruce
Norris.
Lee,
Oh, so good.
and they're going at it in the movie, and you can see they're like doing the stop action, so they're not really trying to hurt one another, but they're incredible athletes. They really are. And Bruce Lee grabs Chuck Norris's chest hair and tears off a patch of chest hair in the
nice.
fight scene.
That's so great.
And it is iconic. It is actually, they have YouTube shorts of it.
I saw this YouTube short the other day, and it was this guy showing like how different, celebrities trip and fall in movies. So he was like mimicking,
Mm.
you know, Tom Cruise, and he was mimicking, you know, Johnny Depp. And so he's doing this thing where the
Joe
guys,
Biden.
where the guy's tripping over a big, you know, stick in the middle
Yeah.
of the road. All of them were really good, but then he got to Chuck Norris, and when he got to Chuck Norris, the stick got up and moved out of the way
Oh.
because Chuck doesn't trip.
No.
So, no.
When Chuck jumps in the ocean, he doesn't get wet. The water gets chucked.
Well, there you go.
That's a fact.
Chuck it.
I love Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
When I was a kid, there was a movie that came out with Chuck Norris. I think it was the first movie I ever saw with Chuck Norris was The Delta Force.
Oh yeah.
And it is so unbelievably cheesy, but he's got some great fight scenes in it because he's Chuck. But it
Yeah.
is quite cheesy.
Yeah. It's
It's like, you know, there was Chuck Norris, and then there was the French guy, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, my favorite of all favorites, Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal was something fierce.
you're yeah. Well, like I said, if you're over 45 years old with a ponytail,
I am now.
No,
Yep,
you
there you
are.
go.
Now there's
Yeah.
no ponytail yet.
Not today. Well, no,
No.
I took it out just before you got here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But if you're over 45 and you have a ponytail, you're either a big Steven Seagal fan or you work in an Italian restaurant. That's the only two times I've seen it.
Well, there you go.
For the most part, you know.
Did you ever see, you know, Steven Seagal for a time? He was like a deputy sheriff's officer.
Yes.
And he would go on like, what were the shows? The cops type shows. And Steven Seagal would be one of the guys arresting people. It was spectacular.
Well, I think that's when he was pretending to be Native American.
Was he really?
I mean, I don't know if he was pretending, but he was trying to throw that vibe off.
Oh.
Yeah, as one of them. He had a lot of different iterations.
He did. The Japanese vibe is the best.
Yeah. Well, remember he was the cook on the boat?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite Steven Seagal movies. That was Under Siege.
Ooh.
Very good. It was like a mix of MacGyver and like special forces. That's basically what it was, because he's like making all these bombs out of things. And
I tell you, I just love the 70s martial arts movies that were made in Hong Kong that were originally, they had to be dubbed into English so the lips
Right.
keep moving.
Yeah.
And it makes it for
how
me.
do you like Jackie Chan?
I love Jackie Chan.
He's pretty awesome too. He was one of the trips and falls on the little short takes on that video that
Yeah.
I was talking about.
Well, one of our guys did the George of the Jungle last week.
Yeah, went over the handlebars kind of a thing.
And yeah, and he's fine. But so because our guys are caring and loving, they sent a video of this product they have for elderly people that evidently it's inertia operated, but it's like an airbag. And when you start to fall down, these airbags go off when you hit. And it's quite comical, the thought. And I'm like, well, wow, this is kind of scary. But they actually sell these things, but these bags just before you fall, they like blow up like an airbag in a car.
Really? So
Yeah.
it knows that you're falling?
It knows you're falling.
That's kind of similar. Have you seen the little wrist thing that guys wear on the big deep sea or the big wave surfing, that it senses pressure if they're certain level underwater and
Their vest
deploys?
blows up.
Well, no, just the one on the wrist. Have you seen this one? And it
No.
just takes them straight up. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Because a lot of guys, what guys are doing now, the big wave surfers,
Yeah.
some of them have vests that it will inflate after it hits a certain pressure. But the other one is some guys actually had little oxygen deals.
That makes
on there.
sense.
And what I think what a lot of people don't realize when you're surfing, I was never a big wave surfer, but I used to be a real avid surfer, and I'm
Yeah.
talking, 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I used to surf a lot.
That's a lot of surfing.
That was more surfing than working almost.
This must have been pre-marriage.
As a matter of fact, how would you know that? It was our
Yeah.
very first struggle in
As
marriage.
that guy was talking with someone recently, they were asking me why I stopped doing martial arts, and I said, "Well, I had some kids. I had a kid, and then there was 2 kids, and then there was 3 kids, and by the time we got to 3 kids, it was like, yeah, you're probably not going to be doing that so much anymore." Same
Yeah.
thing with running, because I was a runner for a while too, and it was like, yeah, once I had more than 2 kids, and I couldn't push them in the Bob stroller for an hour at a time, then they were not going for my long distance runs any longer.
we joke. I mean, I'm joking about it a little bit, but I would surf 2 to 3 hours in the morning and at least 2 to 3 hours in the night every day.
Wow.
Incredible exercise. But what most people don't realize is it is like running full clip, and then all of a sudden you have to hold your breath underwater. So, the really top-notch surfers are incredible athletes. These
Yeah.
guys, just to have the ability, the amount of wind it generates,
Right.
and incredible upper body strength. So really, yeah, fun times. But yeah, that
Where
ended
was
after
your
I got
Where
married.
was your favorite place to surf?
So we had the key and the sticker to Black's Beach.
Uh-huh.
And the reason Black's is such a great beach is it's a beach break, but the way the reef generates the wave, it's got a great right and a great left. And it's a little bit more of a more powerful wave. In fact, when it jacks up and gets big, it's a little bit more like Hawaii. And the waves in Hawaii are amazing. So it's a great beach. And because of the difficulty to get down the cliff for most people or having to walk down the paved section, it just kind of thins out some of the cheese balls. And so primarily that, because we had the key and the sticker, we could drive down, and then a lot of times a very local beach. And so you knew most of the guys, so there was not a lot of nonsense back and forth. And then we drove a really big pickup truck with a lumber rack. And so if you want to ride up the hill, you don't drop in on the guys in the white F-250 with a lumber rack. Be nice to those guys because you won't ride up the hill. And so it was really great. And that's the problem. It was probably too great. So, but yeah. In the news.
Well, this last weekend was another very geopolitical weekend. The United States of America, following all the stuff that Israel had begun doing in Iran, also struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran with, 7 B-2 bombers and 14 really very large, massive ordnance penetrators, MOPS,
Yes.
that are able to burrow down into the ground 300 feet and then explode, and pretty amazing. But anyways, after that, apparently now there is a ceasefire that has started. But this was in the news just before you got here. This is June 26, 2025. Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini issues claims of victory. So
he's won.
he has declared on X, of course, that a big slap in the face to the United States and that Iran has won. So I don't know. I just found that kind of fascinating. So there is a ceasefire, but
what did they
apparently
win?
They won. They slapped us back because they fired some missiles, I guess 12 missiles that they fired at one of our bases in Qatar or in UAE or Iraq or something. I don't know. But apparently they won, so now we can have a...
Well, they did win, really.
Yes.
Because they already have 3 holes for their mini
For the new Trump golf course.
Yeah, the new Trump golf course has already been started.
Trump
There's
is going to
3
put a
holes
golf
there.
course in Iran, and he's already got 3 holes.
Yeah, I think that's good. Now that, the club will come in, and it's going to be... Dude.
I liked this news story. UK court finds men who stole $6 million gold toilet guilty. So apparently...
Now that's a throne.
Yeah, apparently there was a vision behind Italian artist Maurizio Catalan's artwork titled America in 2016, and it featured a functional toilet cast in 18-karat gold that was insured for $6 million. We don't know exactly how much it was worth, but apparently there was a heist that took place in September of 2019 when this gold toilet made of cast 18-karat gold was being shown in Oxfordshire's historic Blenheim Palace. And so apparently there were some people who heisted and stole the toilet, which was insured at a value of $6 million and has yet to be recovered. Prosecutors say that it was probably dismantled and sold for parts. Jones, one of the people who was a part of the heist, was even questioned about having used the toilet the day before the heist. And he described the experience as splendid. But,
So it was a hoity-toity?
It was a hoity-toity toilet.
Wow.
So apparently they have not recovered the very expensive golden toilet. In other golden news,
Now, I got a question.
Yes,
here.
please.
What? Well, I mean, would you just roll into Depot to get parts for the golden toilet? I mean, that would be a little...
Yeah,
Maybe it used just regular internals.
man.
It must have been, like gold-plated.
It
'Cause
says cast 18-karat gold.
That would weigh
A lot.
like...
But I mean, $6 million.
1,000 pounds. That would weigh like 1,000 pounds.
I don't know.
Something's not right.
I mean,
here.
how big is this toilet? I don't know if it was a full-size toilet or a relatively small-size toilet. Who knows?
Oh. You know what? When I'm president, which is never going to happen.
Are you going to run for president?
I might.
Wow.
I'm going to ban small toilets. Why
You mean the shorter ones?
Why did just the ones with the short bowls?
Oh, yeah, I
and
don't
stuff?
like that either.
What are you, target practice? I mean, this is ridiculous. Just it
The
fits
toilet
in the
needs
same,
to be the longer toilet and the taller
Yes,
toilet.
elongated and comfort height.
When I go and stay in a hotel that has the short toilet, and you go in the middle of the night to the toilet, you get like worried that you're going to miss because it's like you're half awake, half asleep, and it's too far down.
And then
It's probably better that we talk about things like
good
food
luck
instead
getting
of
up with
toilets.
they're just, gosh, you think they're trying to give people back problems. Yeah.
In other news, as of today, the S&P 500 rose 0.8% to 6,141.02. I bring this up because it is nearly a record high after a significant dip in the early part of April due to tariffs. But apparently we have recovered and we are moving in a positive direction. And also because it's the end of June, a normal event now every June when the Supreme Court gets ready to go on recess beginning in July, they start issuing a whole bunch of their rulings. And so a big ruling today that has people split, but for us, I think we would applaud this one. U.S. Supreme Court backs South Carolina's effort to defund Planned Parenthood.
Oh.
They said that it is possible for South Carolina to remove Medicaid health insurance funding to the programs for Planned Parenthood, and in a 6-3 decision, which is actually a pretty substantial decision in which conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, he was the one who wrote the opinion for this one. They overturned the lower court's decision, barring the Republican-governed South Carolina from terminating regional affiliate Planned Parenthood South Atlantic's participation in state's Medicaid program. So that's I think, good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple little newsy things I've learned of this week. One, as of June 1st in California, it is illegal to touch your cell phone when you're driving.
Really?
Yeah.
You're
not supposed to touch it.
Really?
Yeah.
How are they going to know and enforce that one?
Well, they would see you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I would say 75. I drive a truck of fairly.
You can see.
I look down to the left when I'm, there, and I'd say 75, 80% of the time when I look over, somebody is fiddling with their phone.
While they're driving or while they're sitting at a stop?
Well, they're sitting at the stoplight, which is technically still driving.
Will that be illegal if you're at the stoplight?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you're driving. And then you're behind the person at the light and the
light
light's
goes?
green, and you're like, oh no, just finish your text. We'll be fine. Yeah.
Some features I love about my vehicle. My vehicle alerts me when the light turns green now. It goes ding. It's like, oh, time to go. That's very helpful. That's a great feature that every car should have. Another feature that I did not anticipate would curb my touching of my cell phone while I'm driving is my car drives itself. And when it's in full self-driving, if I pick up my phone, it will alert me and say, pay attention to the road.
That's correct.
Because it's keeping track of me. So I find that now I don't actually touch my phone while I'm driving near as much as I did prior to having that feature.
It's training you.
It is.
Now,
It's a good thing. I have a problem, a cell phone problem.
so you look, well, you're of cell phone age. I picked mine up way too much.
Yeah. What do you mean by cell phone age? You're not cell phone age?
What I mean is you grew up with more technology at your disposal
Right.
than I did.
Yeah.
And you grew up, your culture, there were a lot more activities centered around technology than my generation at the same time.
Right.
Because I'm 61, you're 45?
I am 45.
Okay. So that I would definitely say that you grew up with a lot more technology, using it in your everyday life than we did. It just wasn't simply available. And so
True.
in your defense, it's more part of your life.
I appreciate you defending
in
me.
your
That's
defense.
very, very kind of you to
Yes.
help me be defended. I do feel like this thing is cutting more than I wanted to, but hopefully it's not making any of our watchers dizzy. But apparently, they probably more of them listen than watch. But we can actually see what's going on over here.
Ooh, Dramamine. Yeah, Dramamine.
It kind of cuts a lot. I'm going to have to work out the bugs on this auto cut thing.
So another law, you can now buy more than one gun a month. because that was a law in California. And I guess it went to the Ninth District.
Ninth Circuit.
Ninth Circuit. And I guess the reasoning was it was unconstitutional. He said, what, you only go to church once a month? You only have freedom of speech once a month? That's ridiculous. And so they're like, that's dumb. And for most people, that doesn't really matter. But I have come up against that. You know, you want to go transfer like a couple guns at the same time, so you're selling them to somebody or this or that. They would have to wait for a whole other month. So it was kind of cumbersome and ridiculous. So that was a new law. And that's a little different. So maybe a step in the right direction. I like less laws.
Yeah, I think most people generally would probably go for the less law feature.
Yeah. So,
So do we have any questions today?
we do. And they're not just about Bible stuff. They're about things and people. Well, Bible mixed in. Here we go. Number 1. Can you say more about Ted Cruz's remark about blessing Israel? I think I know the scripture he's referring to. Should we regard the modern state of Israel as a fulfillment of prophecy? So that's part 2 of the question. Is Israel today the same as a biblical nation of Israel in ancient times? So I'd say there's 3 parts to this question. So what did Ted specifically say about this? Was it, if you bless Israel, God will bless you? Was it that exchange?
Yeah, we kind of, for just a very short moment last week, hit on this a little bit. I kind of mentioned it in passing because there was a question last week that I think was somewhat similar to this question. And so there was a conversation between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. And, Tucker, he may have used some typical reporter gotcha tactics in the interview, but I will also say that Ted Cruz, there were some things that he said that some things that he said from a Christian perspective that even I was like, yeah, that's going to get you into some trouble. And I'm not sure that 100% that I agree with that, even though I would say from a theological standpoint, I would think that Ted Cruz and us probably agree on some things more so than not. I want to say that he comes from a Baptist background. And so, us Calvary Chapel Baptist-y people, we probably would agree on a lot of different things. And it's very clear from what he said that he probably definitely would be in the more dispensational camp, because he was talking about, we're commanded. He said that we are commanded in the scriptures to bless Israel. Now, that's not exactly what the scriptures say. He was quoting Genesis chapter 12. And I will say, when he said this and when he brought it up, Tucker Carlson says, the Bible says that? And he says, yes, the Bible says that commands that we're to bless Israel. And so Tucker, wisely asked him, where does the Bible say that? Well, unfortunately for Mr. Cruz, he couldn't answer the question. And then Tucker said, yeah, that's in Genesis. So it was one of those situations where it's like, Senator Cruz, maybe you kind of stepped in it a little bit. Well, it got a whole bunch of people freaked out, because there's a lot of non-Christians in our nation who they got concerned that a senator would hold this view. So this comes from Genesis 12, the call of Abraham, where we read, now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And here's the key. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So the question from this, and listen, there's not a lot of agreement among theologians even as to exactly how we should interpret this. But there are many people in kind of the Calvary Chapel, more dispensational view, who will say that the modern state of Israel that became a nation May 14th, 1948, that the modern state of nation is the fulfillment of this, and that we need to bless the modern state of Israel. And if we don't bless them, or we curse them, that's the opposite bless, that we will be cursed, but if you bless them, you will be blessed. And we have both heard this teaching from people who we love and respect. And is that specifically what this means? That's certainly what Ted Cruz was alluding to. And I would say that you're kind of getting into some real interpretive, hermeneutical gymnastics to say that in this passage. Go ahead.
And I would agree that that's a challenge because, and I need to be careful about this because it's part of my background.
Right.
Right. In coming on staff, I was probably more of a Zionist than anybody else, and perhaps there's a little bit more of that than.
But I mean, I grew up also within the Calvary Chapel circle, so I totally understand that whole thing.
And so I try to temper that, but there's also as you're reading the context of this, I mean, there's a lot of questions that come to this.
Right.
And I'm sure the question that gets asked all the time, well, is this just for Abraham's journey? Is this just for Abraham's the forming of Israel? Is there a time stamp on this? Is it just for a certain time period? And are we just talking about the journey and the formation of just as he embarks? So there's that school of thought. And then there's the school of thought like, no, we're going to just keep doing this today. There's no difference in the modern day Israel than the Israel that, Abraham was a part of. And it's just, there's a lot of challenges there. And I think we can take these things too far. And then mixed in with this always, and one of the things I've kind of always gone back and forth with is so many times we as Christians will appropriate promises that were specifically made to Israel, to God, or to God's people in some way or shape, and we take those as being promises to us. And even,
Right.
I'm a big Spurgeon fan, but I cannot tell you how many devotions I've read from Spurgeon where he is appropriating those things as if they apply directly to you and I. And I'm not saying they do or they don't necessarily. It seems in context they don't really.
Well, I think.
I
would agree. I agree with what you're
it's
saying.
a challenge.
I think
It's a
also
challenge.
there's the issue of Corinthians talks about all of the promises of God are in Him,
Right.
yes, and in Him, amen. So in Christ Jesus, we are inheritors of the promise, and those who hold a non-dispensational view of eschatology within
Mm-hmm.
Protestant Christianity. So those who are more amillennial and even of the post-millennial kind of crowd, but the amillennial crowd would say, "Hey, listen, we are grafted into Abraham by
Correct.
faith," which is true. So in
Yes.
Christ, we are Abraham's descendants. Paul makes that very, very clear in Romans especially. And so in Romans, we in Christ we are a part of Abraham, we're grafted in by
Right.
faith. So we are the inheritors of the promise as well. So I do think that you can, now I think you can stretch some of these things a little too far, but yeah, you can take a lot of the promises that we find in the Old Testament and apply them to us as well. But when it says here in this passage, I will bless those who bless you and curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. The question that is really coming up here is the modern state of Israel the fulfillment of this? And are they the ones who, if you bless them, you will be blessed? I think that's a dangerous reading of this passage, because when it says in you all the families or all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, what is the blessing that blesses all families that descends from Abraham? The blessing that blesses all families that descends from Abraham is Jesus. And so Jesus is the blessing to all the nations of the earth. The nation of Israel, the modern state of Israel, is not the blessing that blesses all the families of the earth. Jesus, who descended from Abraham, is that blessing. And if you bless Christ, you'll be blessed. If you curse Christ, you'll be cursed. And I think Jesus even tips his hat to this, because he says, when he talks about those who honor me, well, not just honor me, but those who proclaim me, I shall proclaim them before the Father, and so forth. I'm getting the exact saying from the scriptures wrong here. But the ultimate blessing of Abraham is Christ, and he's the one, if you curse him, you shall be cursed.
Right.
Now, this does bring up the final part of this question. Is the Israel of today the same as biblical nation of Israel in ancient times, and are they a fulfillment of Bible prophecy? This is where a lot of people are divided. I do think the modern state of Israel is a fulfillment of prophecy. There are a number of different places that talk about a regathering of the people of Israel back to their homeland, and they were exiled from the homeland in the end of the first century and on into the beginning of the second century AD, and they are the dispersed, the diaspora that took place. And so there is a regathering of the people that is prophesied in a number of different Old Testament texts. There's also seems to be an indication in Isaiah chapter 66 where it talks about who has seen such a thing, a nation being birthed in a day. So it would appear that Israel becoming a nation again is a fulfillment of prophecy, and may be an indication, because Israel being in the land seems to be one of the things that's happening when Jesus returns in his second coming, that there is a temple and there's a Jewish presence in the land of Israel. So it would seem like that's connected to the second coming. So for me, as a futurist, when it comes to Bible prophecy, when I look at those things, I think, yeah, they are a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. But are they exactly the same as ancient Israel? No, not necessarily. And I don't think that this means that we should basically give a thumbs up to everything that the modern state of Israel, the Knesset, the prime minister does. I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, and I would say, if you're going to say, hey, cast your vote, I'd say, yeah, I'm going to treat modern day Israel like I would ancient Israel. I'm going to, given an opportunity, if there's If it is within my power to do good, I'm going to do good. That's what I'm going to do. I do not see the hand to mouth. I don't know that I get into the hand to mouth. Like if I give Israel money,
Right.
I'm going to get money back.
Yeah.
That's
more of like a prosperity theology
Yeah,
thing than it is
and I've
sort
heard
of
that-
a real biblical thing.
and I've heard that touted from pulpits for sure. And then I think the other thing that can be a challenge is as Americans, I think when we visit Israel, American Christians, I've seen it many times. Immediately, Israel's cause and struggle resonates with us as
Yeah,
Americans.
yeah.
We very much jump into that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
And the other thing I would say is most of these promises to Israel are great truths. If you have a nation that'll repent and honor God, any nation, I don't care what nation, I think God's going to bless that. I do. Even though that promise was not necessarily made directly to the United States.
Yeah.
And so I think there's blessings in there. I'm careful with taking these things too far.
I think that's wise.
But yes, and love and do what you can for Israel and see what happens. And there's something you can do. Good, great.
There you go.
It's not going to hurt. Just yeah. Okay. When we read the passage, when we read this passage on Sunday, it brought up a question. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of the light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world. John 1, 8 through 9, New King James Version.
New King Jimmy?
New King Jimmy, is the light given to every man? General revelation.
Oh, that's a good question. In one
By a
sense,
really good person. I
Yeah.
like this person. This person's cool.
you know who sent this question is?
I know who sent this person in.
This was from Randy, right?
No.
No. Oh.
Well, Randy asked the same question, but you're correct. I love Randy.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
two people asked
Who
this
did you
question.
hear this question from?
I was going to say, oh no, it wasn't Cindy. It was Randy.
Yeah, I got
Randy.
this
And I
one.
love Randy. I'm a big Randy fan.
So, general revelation, what exactly is that first? Let's explain a little bit. Well,
What army is General Revelation in?
Jewish army. I guess.
Okay,
I
all
don't
right.
know.
Oi.
So general revelation, there are two distinct kinds of revelation that are generally spoken of when you're looking at theology. Two are general revelation and special revelation. I think that you could also say that there's a third that I'll throw in here in a moment. But general revelation is what we find in two specific passages that come to mind. First is Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows forth his handiwork. Day unto day they are uttering their speech. Night unto night they bring forth knowledge. So Psalm 19 is one of the passages. The other passage is going to be Romans chapter 1, where the invisible attributes of God are clearly seen, being understood by the things that were made, such that man is without excuse. So creation bears witness to the Creator. The heavens declare the glory of God. So general revelation is the revelation that we see in God's creation. So I would say three things bring us general revelation. Number one, creation. Paul also adds the moral law that is written upon our hearts. So I would say conscience. So creation and conscience tell us that there is a creator. They direct us to God's, his ability to create and his moral nature, that he's the moral lawgiver. And so I would add a third to this, and it's very closely connected to conscience, but it's also closely related to what we can perceive in nature, and that is consciousness. So the fact that we have consciousness is a very important key. God made us to be able to have self-awareness, to understand who we are, but also to be able to perceive and comprehend his creation and to see the fingerprints, I would say, of God upon creation. So consciousness, creation, and conscience, these three things are general revelation. And God has given us some understanding that he is. So through general revelation, I think there are three primary things that we understand about God. Number one, he exists, because the creation bears witness to the Creator. Number two, he is intelligent. He has the intelligence and the understanding, the knowledge and wisdom to create things. And then number three, he has the power. So he has the resources to actually make the things that he wants to create. So he exists, he's intelligent, and he's powerful. These are some of the things that we know about him. But there's a lot that we don't know about God through general revelation. And those have to do, I like to say, what God is like and what he likes. So what his nature is like, and what his will is. For that, we need special revelation. And this is where God reveals to us, by speaking to us in a language we can comprehend, what his nature is like and what his will is like. So the Bible is special revelation. And then, as I said, I'd throw in a third kind of revelation. I call this personal revelation. And this is where God became a man so that we would understand what God is like, so he could reveal to us his true nature and his will through Jesus Christ. So is general revelation the light which is given to every man coming into the world? In some respects, yes. God has given us sufficient evidence of his existence through consciousness, conscience, and creation. And it is sufficient evidence to convict, shall we say, because there in Romans 1, God says, you are without excuse because what may be known of God is revealed to us in creation and conscience. And so we ought to know that God is. And you don't really have to be all that old or intelligent to be able to recognize and comprehend that God is. So yeah, I would say in some respects, yes, what we read there is akin to general revelation.
You ever met anybody that was devoid of a conscience?
That is a fearful thing when you meet someone whose conscience is seared, as the Bible says, as with a hot iron.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there is a way in which a person's conscience can be calloused, and there's a real danger to that. Normally, a person that it does not have a conscience and does not understand right or wrong, we call them a psychopath.
You usually would meet them in jail. Yeah. Usually. Yeah. Hopefully.
I would rather not meet them on the street somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay, number 3. Do you believe Adam and Eve spoke Hebrew?
Love this question.
I ask, it's a good question. I ask because the names are Hebrew words. If the first humans spoke a different language and the story was transmitted orally and eventually written in Hebrew, it makes me wonder why their names were also translated as if these words, not names. As I thought about the question, it also occurred to me that God didn't explicitly name Adam in the text. Appreciate any thoughts you guys have.
Yes. The first time we see the word Adam used is in Genesis chapter 2, verse 19. And it is the Hebrew word Adam. And so it's just giving us a Hebrew word for us. But yes, the name, it is a proper name, but the name means man. Right. And so really what you have here in Hebrew is God is not explicitly saying, your name shall be Adam, but God is calling him what he is. So the name Adam in Hebrew just means man or mankind. And so we all kind of fall underneath that. There are some other attached meanings to this, but for the most part, it's just the general word for man in Hebrew. So some people think by reading the scriptures that the Old Testament originally written in Hebrew, that must mean that that was the language that Adam spoke, but not necessarily. I don't know that we know that the Bible doesn't explicitly say what language that Adam spoke. I think if you asked a good rabbi, he would tell you, yes, he spoke Hebrew. So, but it's just a general name.
Israeli Hebrew or New York Hebrew? Which Hebrew
would have to be the good New York Hebrew.
Okay.
The one that you order bagels with, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be the
and a schmear
that I want.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know that we don't really know what language was spoken by
You speak any foreign languages?
Well, I somewhat a little bit know enough German to kind of understand what people are saying when they speak German. I can read very delicately Greek. I did take Hebrew. My Hebrew is terrible.
Isn't
Hebrew's really hard?
Yeah.
Well, no, I've met some guys who are really good.
Yeah.
In fact, we had my Hebrew professor speak here, I think last summer. Dr. Watson.
I liked Dr. Watson.
I like Dr. Watson as well.
Yeah.
He really does just like pick up the Hebrew Bible and just read it. I wish I could do that. I cannot do that. He taught me Hebrew for 3 semesters, and let's just say that I don't really know much Hebrew.
Okay.
I can kind of get around a little bit.
All right.
Yeah. It's a hard language.
Oh, yeah.
Do you speak any other languages?
I'm fluent in Cajun.
Yes, I've met your Cajun
persona. Well, it is funny. I have actually been called into situations, usually tense situations, to interpret, dead serious, Cajun. We were having communication problems. I had to jump in the middle, and so this is what he's trying to say.
I have been to Belize twice, and basically the major language in Belize is Cajun. And let me tell you,
I did not know that.
It's one of the, it's definitely spoken. And I have a friend, Mike, who was a missionary in Belize for a while. And man, he could speak it so perfectly well. It was awesome. Wow. And you can kind of understand what someone's saying if they're speaking in it. It's kind of like a little bit.
It makes it harder when they don't have teeth.
I would say anybody
Yes.
speaking
But-
English would make it
oh.
hard if they don't have to.
Oh, yeah. But it's a very passionate language, let's just say.
As is Italian.
Yes.
Let me tell you, when you're in Italy, everything comes across as passionate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to leave that alone. All right. Number 4, is there a reason or a significance to Jesus rising on the third day?
I think that there actually is a significance to Jesus rising on the third day. For one, Jesus prophesied that he would rise on the third day, and so he multiple times tells his disciples that the Son of Man is going to be betrayed and he's going to be delivered over to the chief priests. He's going to be condemned to die. He's going to be crucified. He'll be lifted up, and on the third day he shall rise again. So, what is that significance of the third day? Well, there's a number of different things that you find in the scriptures that connect to the third day. So the third day is rather important, but I do think there's kind of an interesting connection to Genesis chapter 1 on the third day of creation. So, in fact, let me go to Genesis 1 over here on my Bible for a second. So in Genesis 1, the third day of creation starts in verse 9. It says, "Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place and let the dry land appear." So this is the creation of the dry land, the earth, if you will, appear. And what is man made from? He's made ultimately from the ground. God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into him the breath of life, Genesis 2:7. And God called the dry land earth, and he gathered together the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. So notice, number one, that he called it was good after he does that. But he continues, "Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass and herb that yields seed." So how are all the plants going to grow and propagate on the earth? Through the seed. So he's going to make herbs that yield seed, and the fruit of the tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself and on the earth. And it was so. And the Lord brought forth the grass and the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So this is the second time that God said it was good. So the evening and the morning were the third day. So there's two interesting things happening here. Number one, of the 6 days of creation, the third day is the only day that's blessed twice. So there's a double blessing as God is creating the earth, and he's also creating the plants that are upon the earth. And how are plants propagated? With a seed. And how does the seed yield its fruit or bring forth a tree? It has to die and go into the ground. Paul talks about this in the New Testament, where says that when he's talking about resurrection, he says that he uses the illustration of a seed, and the seed gets planted and it dies, and then it brings forth a new growth. And so I think there's a connection between Jesus dying and him going into the tomb, into the earth. And then from him, 3 days later, comes this new growth, this new life that brings blessing, a double blessing that we have here in this passage. So I think there's a typological connection between the third day. Now, there's also another passage, I want to say it's in Hosea, where it talks about the people of Israel rising on the third day. Let me see if I can find this. The third day.
Sure that wasn't the Lord of the Rings?
No.
Oh,
They
okay.
stole it from the Bible, my friend. They
They didn't steal it. The guy was a Christian.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
Hosea chapter 6. "Come and let us return to the Lord, for he has torn and he will heal us. He has stricken and he will bind us up. After 2 days he will revive us. On the third day he will raise us up that we may live in his sight." So there's definitely a connection between Hosea 6:1 and the third day. There's definitely this prophetic allusion that Jesus multiple times is talking about the third day. There's also a Genesis 22 connection. If you remember, God tells Abram to take his son, his only son Isaac, whom he loves, and take him into the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering. And so he begins this process, and then it takes 3 days for him to come and bring his son to Moriah. So for Abram, during that period of time, his son was basically dead because he's going to sacrifice him. He ultimately didn't sacrifice him, but he's going in that direction. So there's that 3 day connection. There's the third day connection in Genesis 1. There's the third day connection in Hosea 6. And then there's the prophecies that Jesus gives about his rising. And so in that respect, I think the third day is important.
And let's not forget the band.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Third day. Okay.
They had some good hits.
Yes.
Yes.
Haven't heard anything out of them in a while, though.
Yeah, I wonder if they're still around. Maybe not.
Number 5, I noticed the What We Value section on the church's website. First, I've never seen a value section on the church website. Is that the stuff we put that's on special?
Yeah.
Okay. And second, it comes before the what we believe statement of faith. Why?
Good question. So we do have a value. We have a what we value and a what we believe section on our about page on the church's website. And we have 10 values, which we've talked about before. We want everything we do to be done with joy because we have an optimistic vision of the future. We want everything we do to be done with excellence because our Lord does all things well. We want everything we do to promote connection, Cross Connection Church, because God created us for connection with him and with one another. We want everything we do to demonstrate love because Jesus, in all that he did, was compelled by love and so forth. You can read all the different 10 statements that we have on our website about what we value. And then after that, we have our statement of faith where we go through the basics of what we hold to as our statement of faith. So why do we have these two things on our website? Well, a lot of churches have a statement of faith on their website, but why do we have a values section? Well, for years, I taught church planting at Calvary Chapel Bible College. And I also did a number of things where I consulted with various ministries or church plants where they were launching. And, you know, for a lot of people who are in corporate business environments, they spend a lot of time on their purpose statement, their mission, their vision, and their values. And so when I would talk with students and when I would work with organizations that were developing their organization or their church, I would say, number one, you want to start with what is your purpose? What do you exist for? What is the thing that you are doing? And then your mission, and then your vision, and your values. So we would go through all those things when I would talk with guys about this sort of stuff. So for the church, I think it's really important to recognize, there was this author who wrote this book called The Purpose-Driven Church. He also wrote The Purpose-Driven Life.
That guy. Yeah.
And the name that shall not be named because he gets people into trouble as soon as you mention his name, like Voldemort or something like that. But anyway, so this guy, we like him, Rick Warren.
Yeah,
we don't like everything about Rick, but Rick, he's a Christian.
He does some good stuff.
He does. And so he's not our pastor, but he's a pastor, or he was a pastor. But he wrote a book before he
knows more than Ted Cruz about the Bible.
I would say so.
Yeah.
He probably knows Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
But so he wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life, but before he wrote that, he wrote The Purpose-Driven Church. And The Purpose-Driven Church also is a huge bestseller among pastors, where he talks about, you need to be a purpose-driven church. And he talks about 5 things that are the purpose of the church. Now, here's the funny thing. If you asked 100 pastors to write out a list of what is the purpose of the church, they might come up with a whole bunch of different things that are different than Rick Warren, but there'd be tons of crossover. Mm-hmm. So what is the purpose of the church? Well, worship and evangelism and mission and discipleship, like all these core things that you would hear of. How do we know that? Comes from the Bible. So the first thing we need to recognize, every church has a purpose, and that purpose should come from the Bible. If your purpose doesn't come from the Bible, then you're not a biblical church.
Well, it's kind of like your own creed.
Exactly. Yeah. So what is the purpose of the church? You can list a whole bunch of different things. Missions would be involved, and worship and discipleship and evangelism. All these things would be on the list if you came up with a list of, what are the 20 things that are purpose of the church? And you should be able to identify where those came from. They came from the Bible. So every Christian church's purpose is defined by the Bible. And then what is their mission? Well, their mission is to fulfill that purpose. And what is their vision? Well, their vision is how they, as a local body of believers, fulfill that mission and that purpose. And then from that, there are values and there is, what you believe. So for me, for us as a church, our purpose is defined by the Bible. Our mission is to fulfill that purpose. That becomes like a North Star that we are heading towards. And then our values and what we believe are like the guardrails, if you will, that keep us moving in the direction towards that North Star. And I'm of the opinion that your beliefs inform your values. You're going to live out your values and your beliefs. And so we're just stating on our website
what you really believe.
Right, yeah.
Because I think a lot of times they're stated beliefs, but they're just up there because people want to say that's what they're popular.
So there's no like hierarchy. The fact that what we value comes before what we believe on our website, it's not because, like our values are more important than our beliefs or our beliefs are less important, whatever. It's just happens to be the way that they showed up on our website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No deep underlying thing.
No, not really. Things that make you go, Very interesting.
Well,
I think that's the last one, yes?
That was it.
Man, oh man.
We had answers.
I hope all of our
yeah.
jumping around wasn't freaking people out.
Well, I have yet to watch the video part of this.
Yeah, well, we have this feature here where we can set it to auto switching, and it will, if you're talking, then it will go to you. If I'm talking, it will go to me. And sometimes it will go to the camera where it shows both of us.
What happens if we're both talking at the same time?
Maybe it goes to this one.
Ooh.
I have no idea. We'll figure it out. We'll get all the bugs worked out. Probably no one's ever going to watch it anyway. Let's just listen to it.
Oh, I think we need to be more positive than that.
I try to be more I will do better to be more positive.
So, you were halfway through the year. Are there any...
It is halfway, isn't it?
Yeah. Are there any, like, New Year's resolutions? You're like, yeah, that one went
mid-year
down a flame.
resolution?
Yeah, mid-year resolution. So.
What would be your mid-year resolution? To go back and try and redo the New Year's resolution?
I don't know. I mean, I started off this year trying to be nicer.
How have you done on that? Well, you also had another thing. You were trying to ride how many miles this year?
I'm trying to ride 1,000 miles this year.
Okay.
And I am at 495 miles.
Okay.
And
You're a little shy of your mid-year goal.
Well,
You're going to need some extra riding in the second half of the year.
well, hang on.
I'm just kidding.
No,
You're right there.
yeah, I was going to say I'm 10 miles, or I'm 5 miles short,
Yeah.
and I'm riding tomorrow.
Well, there you go.
So, and I'll ride 10 or 15 miles tomorrow. So I'll be in there. I think. Did I do my math right? Yeah.
I think so.
So I fell off a little bit because of weather and various
Adjust
medical things. But
straight on
yeah,
there. Yeah,
good
good.
there. But anyway, no, I think I'll make it.
Well, that's great.
I think I'll make it. So I wanted to ride 1,000 miles this year, and it's been good. It's been good. It's good to get out and exercise.
I don't know that I had any specific New Year's resolutions this year. Yeah, not that I can think of.
My other one is I was trying to get rid of extraneous projects, which they're getting done.
I did, and during that whole season that some people follow called Lent, I gave up on Twitter or X for the entire time. And then post-Lent, after Easter, I have probably only gone on it, I'd say like 20 times. I've tried to restrict the going on to Twitter just because it absorbs way too much of my mental energy when I start thinking about things that people say.
I probably need to do that.
Give up on social media?
Jason, I mean, I'm not a social media like junkie, but because of Facebook Marketplace,
Oh, yeah.
then you got to go past Facebook to get to it.
We're trying to get rid of something for free on Facebook Marketplace, and it's not really working right now.
Really?
Yeah. I'm trying to get rid
Which
of two,
kid?
I'm trying to get rid of 2 roosters.
Really?
You want to deal some roosters with for me?
Yeah,
Mark?
I can take care of it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Let's not talk about how you'll do it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You know. What are the roosters' name? McNugget and
Well, they had female names because they were assumed to be hens, and it turns out
so they were misgendered.
so they are silky. I didn't even know there were all these different varieties of chickens until this year. But there's this kind of variety of chicken that my wife absolutely loves. They're called silkies, and they look like something just goofy. Okay, they're like fluffy all over the place, and yeah, like feathers like you can't imagine. Well, apparently it's hard to tell when they're tiny the sex of these ones. Other ones you can determine. This one's a hen, this one's a rooster. So she just got these silkies, hoping that they were hens. And about 3 weeks ago, early in the morning, because I sleep with my sliding glass door open, I hear this thing. And let me tell you, it was the most pitiful crow I've ever heard. It went,
yeah, they're not. Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world is that? And then after 3 or 4 times, I thought, I think that's a chicken trying to crow. Sure enough. And I don't really live in a place where you can have roosters. So I need to get rid of them. But the Facebook Marketplace is not helping me with free roosters. Anyways.
That's a conundrum, but I can help you with that. We'll take care of that.
I figured.
So,
I had some kids who said, well, maybe Pastor Mark can give it the cheeseburger. And I was thinking to myself, why? We're not going to waste ammunition on
the McNugget. No, I mean, you can take care of that with a tennis racket. It's nothing. No big deal. So,
I mean, people slaughter chickens all the time. It's a normal thing because we eat chicken.
Yes.
So I told Andrea, I said, listen, I can take care of this. And she was like, we can't.
Have you ever
chicken.
cleaned?
I named them.
Have you ever cleaned a chicken?
No, but I watched a YouTube video. How hard could it be?
It's messy.
It looks like
Like you want to do a bunch of them at one time.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to fillet one.
Well, how about 2 at once?
I told you we can take care of it, man. It's not a problem. I can make those chickens go away.
Rotisserie silky.
I have been dealing with
Oh, this is terrible.
Squirrels.
Yeah. We're going
We're-
to get into trouble.
Inundated with squirrels.
Oh, my God.
And we have these 2 traps called the Squirrelinator. And those traps work. You catch squirrels. Yeah. It's the time of year. And then, so we have the guys over every Wednesday night for dinner after the bike ride.
Right.
And I go out to pick up a few things, roll up the tablecloths and things like that. Everybody's gone. And there is a roachy looking beetle. And I mean, that thing was that big, huge. And it is crawling on one of the chairs. And I'm like, if my wife sees this, I'm going to have to call 911.
Because it's a big beetle.
It's a big,
Is it one of the ones with a cool, like, green?
and it had the antenna, but it was, for a minute, I thought, if this is a roach,
Oh.
she's going to call in an airstrike, and we will nuke the entire house and have to rebuild it again if it's a roach. So I snuck up on this thing, knowing my lives hung in the balance, and I got it in one of those manila envelopes and closed the top, and I put it in the freezer, and I said, "Here's the deal."
Wait, you put it in the freezer? I don't understand. Why
I
would
wanted
you put it in
to
the freezer?
kill it, but I wanted to kill it whole for
Oh.
body ID.
Oh, I see. So
little-
you're trying to figure out what kind of, you need an entomologist.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I said, here's the deal. I found a pretty gnarly bug in the backyard. Looks kind of roachy.
You told her.
I ain't going to lie. Yeah, I said, I'm not going to lie. It looks kind of roachy.
Yeah.
And it is contained in a manila envelope in the freezer, so it'll be dead in a few minutes. So I'd like you to call our bug guy
Ah,
and have him come out.
you have a bug guy.
I have a bug guy.
Oh,
You know, they spray for ants and spiders and things like that.
What's the bug guy's name?
I don't know.
I think mine is Dave.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
But my wife knows who the bug guy is because he's an important part of our lives.
Do you work for Western or?
I think it is Western, actually.
Yeah, see, mine's Western.
So either that or truly no one. No, I think it's Western.
All
So anyway, the bug guy came out and then opened it up and went, "Oh yeah, that's not a roach. It's not a water bug. That's just a big old gnarly ugly beetle. There's probably only 2 of them in your yard." And I was like,
Praise God.
"We don't have to move."
From whom all blessings flow.
Yeah. Well, okay, I didn't know this about roaches. There's different kinds.
Yeah.
So there's what they call a California roach, which is like a water bug. They live outside.
Ah,
They can end up in your house, but they will die. And then there's the old roachy roaches like they have in New York and LA, and they're not, they live in the walls.
yeah, no.
Those are the ones you don't want.
Gross.
And we would have to burn the house down for them. So anyway, my wife hates bugs.
All right. Well, I'm glad it wasn't a roach.
It would have changed my life.
Well, next week we will try to do a show before I
Depart.
depart. But until next time.
All right, Bompadita.
So, any last words, Mark?
Keep your spiritual minty freshness, people. A chapter a day keeps the devil away.
Not too much cold-blooded love. And we'll see you next time.
Adios.